forecast of March 24th through the 28th of the U.S. Treasury curve. Overall, we did a weekly snapshot of all the rates from 1 year out to 30 years of the U.S. Treasury rates. I'll show you two different graphs with those forecasts along with the 1 year rate forecast out several years. Overall, during the week, several current events affected the U.S. Treasury rate curve. The turmoil that we're having right now overseas in Russia is affecting all of our rates. Although you may not think so because it's overseas, those rates affect our foreign holdings that we have with different investors. Since our foreign holdings overall have dropped, causing greater global risk, our U.S. investors have had to increase their current holdings with us in our short-term securities. There's also been several economic releases that were released by the U.S. Department during the week that caused worry over possible rate increases from the Treasury. Different releases such as housing and consumer reports will affect these rates. The housing market numbers, which includes housing sales from all U.S. investors, has hit an overall 5-month low. And there was also a durable goods report that was released that eased the worry of investors from the housing report that showed that consumers were spending more, but not as rapidly as we would like them to. Also, on Wednesday, you'll see in our graph that there was a slight spike up in the 5-year note. That's due to the large consumer demand, which was the largest since 2012 of those notes. Over $35 billion in 5-year notes was sold on Wednesday, which continues to drive our 5-year rate down. So as you can see, this is the graph from Monday to Wednesday. Overall, you can see the greatest volatility is in those 5-year rates, but that curve is just continuing to flatten out over the 30-year period. From Monday to Friday, overall, during the entire week, our 30-year note saw a slight decline in rate, which could have been due to the housing and consumer reports that were released that reflected a negative impact on our rates. At the week's end, the curve started slightly moving up in the short years. Although it was slightly moving up, it wasn't moving up as much to invert the curve, although it was just slightly increasing several basis points to show that increase in the short end. And that was due to the consumer reports that showed a slight increase in consumer spending. So as you can see, overall, Monday to Friday, you can see that there was a slight increase in this 1 to 3 year notes, which was due to that consumer report that was released to us. And also you still have the most volatility, within the 5 to 10 year range, which was due to those housing impacts and the great sale of those 5-year notes. And then, of course, on the tail end of our curve, you see that there is a drastic drop in those 30-year notes. So overall, after graphing the rates that the U.S. Treasury releases to the public, you'll see that there's a forecast for our 1-year rates out several years. All these rates are reflected on all the key events that I've just discussed. But also you'll see that there's a great influence between the actual rates and the forecasted rates. So overall, you'll see that the 5-year market auction caused our forecasted rates out 5 years to be the most drastic in volatility. But although that's drastic, the spread in all of our other maturities remain pretty tight. The downward trend of current rates is going to continue a downward effect on our curve, which continues it to flatten out over the years, which will show lower rates and lower inflation overall. So as you can see, this is our 1-year forecasted rate over the next several years. And I forecasted from Monday, and then a forecast also on Friday at the end of the week once all the reports were released. So right here, our 4 to 5 year rate had the most volatility overall. You can see that as of Friday, it dropped several basis points due to those reports that were released. But overall, you can see that the curve is going to continue to steepen upward, but remain pretty steady over the next 3 years. So overall, the movement that we discussed, it continues to flatten out a curve over the next 30 years due to the poor housing reports that were released and the consumer reports being lower than what we actually expected they would be. And for our high yielding auction of $35 billion in 5-year notes. And our overseas terminal, which is causing our foreign holdings to drop. That's all. Thank you.